A mysterious interstellar visitor known as 3I Atlas is racing through our solar system, and as it nears Mars, its behavior is defying expectations. Why is this object acting so strangely? In this video, we'll explore the puzzling data behind its journey. If you enjoy discoveries like this, please like, subscribe and share, and tell us in the comments, what do you think 3I Atlas really is? Thank you for watching. Now, let's begin. From the dark reach of the Sagittarius constellation, an unfamiliar body crosses the threshold of the solar system. It is catalogued as 3I Atlas, the third interstellar object known to humanity, yet from the moment of its recognition, it resists all attempts to place it neatly among the natural wanderers of space. Its journey has carried it across uncounted light years through fields of scattered stars, ancient clouds of gas, and the shock waves of dying suns. Now, by chance or by design, it drifts into the gravitational influence of our star, and every instrument on Earth and in orbit is turned toward it. Astronomers are accustomed to comets, asteroids, and the familiar bodies that swing through the planetary system. They know the typical arcs of elliptical orbits, the dust tails that flare when sunlight warms frozen nuclei, the predictable chemistry that speaks of ices and carbon compounds formed in the cold of the early galaxy. What unsettles them is that this new visitor refuses to conform. When its trajectory is traced backward, the line runs outward across the galactic plane until it dissolves into the haze of Sagittarius, a region already rich in strangeness. That is the direction from which many radio bursts have been recorded, including the famous signal in the year 1977 that still lacks explanation. To know that this body comes from the same quarter of the sky adds an edge of tension to its study, for it feels less like a coincidence and more like the opening of a story whose meaning is not yet revealed. The velocity alone demands attention. Relative to the Sun, it moves at 61 kilometers per second, a speed higher than any natural body previously tracked within the solar system. Comets fall inward at impressive rates, but none have ever been measured to enter with such relentless momentum. At this speed, it cannot be bound. The Sun's gravity curves its path but cannot capture it. The object is simply passing through an interstellar drifter here for a brief encounter, before it escapes again into the vast dark. Yet the speed also suggests an immense history. Only something pushed by galactic tides for ages beyond measure could acquire such velocity. The thought that 3I Atlas may have been travelling since before the birth of the Sun is not speculation but simple arithmetic. If its composition is ancient, then it may preserve records of conditions that predate every planet circling here now. Early images show it as a faint glow against the background of Sagittarius. At first, the redness of its light catches attention, for it does not look like a cloud of dust scattering the Sun's illumination, but rather like the surface itself radiating with an inner hue. The reddish tint suggests organic molecules or iron-rich dust, and yet spectroscopic measurements at this early stage remain inconclusive. As astronomers refine their focus, the outline of a coma begins to show the hazy atmosphere of gas and particles released as surface ices sublime under solar heating. It seems at once familiar and alien, a cometary cloak around a body that by origin belongs to another system entirely. What is striking is that its entry into visibility comes sooner than expected. At a distance where ordinary comets remain inert, 3I Atlas already shows a lively response. Either it carries materials that evaporate at higher temperatures than usual, or it has been activated by past encounters in ways still hidden from view. The Very Large Telescope in Chile, tuned to capture faint detail, contributes early data recording a nucleus, that seems larger than those of the two earlier interstellar objects. Estimates suggest anywhere from 3 kilometers to 10, already a formidable size, but hints of a broader spread in brightness raise suspicions of something even larger. Astronomers hesitate, aware that brightness alone cannot yield a secure measure, yet they continue to refine models running simulations that return conflicting results. Into this uncertainty arrives the first major puzzle. Observers note that the object's trajectory aligns unusually well with the ecliptic plane, the flat sheet, along which the planets orbit the Sun. Most interstellar bodies fall in at steep angles, their paths reflecting the random geometry of galactic drift. This one glides almost parallel, tilted by less than 5 degrees. Statistically, the odds of such an alignment are remote, perhaps 1 chance in 500. Still, improbable events do occur, and the discipline of astronomy demands caution. Yet the feeling persists that this object behaves less like a chance visitor, and more like something following a course. The strangeness of its approach does not end there. As the months advance, its apparent brightness begins to waver. Observers in Namibia and Hawaii record subtle changes, not the smooth increase expected, as distance to the Sun decreases, but irregular fluctuations as if outbursts of activity punctuate its glow. Some describe it as breathing light into the void, a flare of brightness followed by relative calm, a rhythm that does not fit the steady physics of sublimating ice. Scientists search for explanations suggesting jets from buried volatile reservoirs or fragments breaking loose to scatter sunlight differently, but the mystery only deepens. Meanwhile, in the background, the associations grow harder to ignore. Sagittarius is the home not only of crowded star fields but of the galaxy's central bulge, a place where gravitational tides and energetic events shape the chemistry of interstellar space. A body wandering from that direction may have been bombarded by radiation coated in unusual compounds, or even altered by collisions with other drifting masses. Each possibility adds weight to the strangeness observed. As the community of researchers debates, the object continues its relentless path. With every day it closes distance to the inner planets, approaching the point where more detailed study will be possible. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is already being prepared to turn its high-resolution camera toward it when the flyby occurs. For now, ground-based telescopes gather what data they can, dissecting the spectrum, measuring the coma, estimating the size, refining the orbit. Still, at the heart of all this effort remains a simple truth. 3i Atlas is a stranger among strangers, an ancient fragment of another star's debris cloud that now slides silently into view. Its arrival from Sagittarius is not just another entry in astronomical catalogues, but a reminder that the solar system is not isolated. Beyond the border of planetary orbits lies an open gateway to the wider galaxy, and from that gateway bodies may arrive without warning, carrying with them enigmas that resist easy classification. As it crosses the outer markers of the system, its presence grows brighter, its path more clearly mapped and the questions more insistent. What composes its surface? What force set it moving so swiftly, and why does its orbit align so precisely with the plane of the planets? The answers remain hidden in the glare of distance waiting to unfold as it presses nearer. For now, the first fact is simple yet profound. An object has come to us from the stars beyond, arriving with a speed unmatched, and a history unrecorded out of Sagittarius and into our skies. The first precise measurements of 3i Atlas confirm what the earliest estimates only hinted at. This object is travelling at a speed of 61 kilometers per second relative to the Sun, a rate that immediately sets it apart from every comet and asteroid known within the solar system. Such velocity is not merely high, it is unprecedented. For context, comets falling from the distant Oort cloud often surge inward at impressive speeds, but even they rarely exceed 40 to 50 kilometers per second. By crossing that threshold, 3i Atlas demonstrates that it does not belong to this system and cannot ever be bound by it. The sun's gravity curves its path, bending the trajectory, but cannot trap it. Already it is clear that this is a transient visitor, destined to swing around the inner planets and vanish once more into the dark, its brief passage through our region of space, a unique chance for study. The speed itself raises profound questions. It implies that 3i Atlas has been moving through the galaxy for epochs beyond human comprehension. A body with such momentum is unlikely to have acquired it recently. Instead, it must be the cumulative result of long gravitational interactions, stellar flybys, and the tidal forces that operate across interstellar space. Some models suggest that such an object could have been ejected from its original star system billions of years ago, flung outward during the chaotic era when planets were still forming. If so, then its structure and chemistry may record conditions that predate not only Earth, but the Sun itself. The idea that it carries in its frozen heart the signature of a stellar nursery older than our own star gives astronomers reason to dedicate every possible instrument to its observation. Early detection comes through automated surveys scanning the skies for faint moving points of light. Software flags the unusual motion, and astronomers quickly realize that the orbit does not close upon itself. Instead, it describes a hyperbolic arc, the unmistakable signature of an interstellar traveler. The excitement is immediate, for only 2 other such objects have ever been confirmed before. The first was 1I Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, and the second was 2I Borisov, observed in 2019. Both raised questions, but their brief passages allowed only limited study. Now, with the third arrival, scientists know they must act quickly, yet carefully, for the opportunities may never repeat. The sheer brightness of 3i Atlas at such an early stage surprises many. Usually comets remain dim until the sun's heat begins to release volatile gases. This one appears active at distances where others are still quiet. As its coma expands, the pattern of light does not behave smoothly. Variations in brightness occur unpredictably, as if jets are erupting from beneath the surface, or fragments are peeling away. At times, the object flares more intensely, then dims again, a rhythm of luminous breath that does not follow the neat curve expected from a natural body heating in sunlight. This variability complicates attempts to measure its size. Astronomers normally use the brightness of a comet to estimate the extent of its nucleus, but when the glow itself shifts in strength, the calculations become uncertain. Some estimates place it at a modest 3 kilometers across, others at a massive 46. If the larger value is correct, the mass would dwarf that of the earlier interstellar visitors by a factor of 1,000,000. Such a size strains probability, for the odds of such a giant fragment surviving interstellar travel and then passing directly through our neighborhood seem remote. Yet the numbers resist easy dismissal. The mystery deepens when researchers begin to parse its spectral data. The signature of cyanide compounds grows suddenly stronger, suggesting volatile chemistry more vigorous than in typical comets. Cyanide is known to release a greenish glow when illuminated by sunlight, and soon observers report that the object's color, once distinctly red, is shifting. The change unsettles the scientific community. The reddish hue had been striking in its own right, seeming to emerge directly from the surface rather than the surrounding coma, but the transition to green adds another layer of peculiarity. The explanation that cyanide gas is flooding the coma may hold some truth, yet the rapidity of the change leaves doubts. More puzzling still is the detection of nickel without the expected companion of iron. On Earth, such separation rarely occurs naturally. Industrial processes can refine nickel in this way, but comets, asteroids, and meteorites almost always present nickel together with iron products of stellar nucleosynthesis that resist easy separation. To find nickel in isolation challenges assumptions about how such a body could have formed. Some argue that unusual environments might account for it, perhaps regions near supernovae, where extreme forces fractionated elements in strange ways. Others quietly acknowledge that the ratio resembles manufactured material. Caution restrains any leap to conclusions, yet the anomaly lingers in every discussion. The data from the Very Large Telescope, combined with observations from smaller instruments scattered across the globe, paint a portrait of an object both familiar and alien. It carries the hallmarks of a comet coma-tail volatile chemistry, yet each of those traits expresses itself with twists that resist conventional models. Instead of simple sublimation, there are unpredictable outbursts. Instead of steady chemistry, there are abrupt shifts. Instead of typical elemental ratios, there are imbalances that suggest unusual histories. And underlying all of this is the relentless speed, a reminder that the time to study these mysteries is limited. What strikes many researchers most is the sense of deliberateness in its approach. The orbital path that calculations reveal lies astonishingly close to the ecliptic plane. With a tilt of less than 5 degrees, the object slides into alignment with the very sheet along which the planets themselves travel. By random chance, this is extraordinarily unlikely. Statistical models suggest that among hundreds of possible orientations, such alignment should occur rarely. Yet here it is, an interstellar object threading its way through the planetary plane with uncanny precision. While science demands recognition of coincidence, human intuition resists the ease with which this explanation is offered. At conferences and in late-night discussions, astronomers quietly wonder if there is more to its path than chance. Each new measurement adds tension to this unfolding mystery. The awareness that it is not merely a faint star-like dot, but a body tens of kilometers across moving at impossible speed, gives it weight, a sense of presence that grows as it closes the distance to the inner planets. Already plans are underway to harness every orbital instrument from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to the array of probes scattered across the solar system. The hope is to capture high-resolution images when it passes Mars, but for now Earth's telescopes continue their vigil watching an alien traveller whose velocity proclaims it a messenger from deep time and deep space. In its speed lies the certainty of its origin beyond the sun, and in its brightness lies the promise of secrets that remain concealed, waiting for the moment when distance shrinks and its features emerge more clearly. For now, astronomers can only measure, model, and wait as the fastest object ever seen in the solar system approaches with silent inevitability. When astronomers first turned their instruments on 3i Atlas, the faint red glow rising from the object's surface immediately set it apart. At great distance from the sun, where comets normally remain dark, this body appeared strangely luminous. The radiance seemed not to be merely sunlight reflecting off a surrounding cloud of dust, but something emanating directly from its surface itself, as though the object carried an ember-like hue from within. This initial reddish signature puzzled scientists, for it did not align with the behavior of other interstellar visitors or with the catalogue of known comets. On Earth, redness in such emissions often signals the presence of organic-rich compounds or the glow of iron oxides. Yet spectroscopy failed to produce a straightforward answer. The spectrum was ambiguous, hinting at complex mixtures, and perhaps surface layers that had been chemically altered during the object's immense voyage through the galaxy. At first, many assumed that as the sun's heat grew stronger, the object would soon behave in a familiar way. A coma, the envelope of dust and gas surrounding a cometary nucleus, would emerge, scattering sunlight and producing the expected pale tones. But 3I Atlas refused to settle into this role. Instead, the red persisted longer than expected, flickering faintly, yet undeniably from the body itself. Some astronomers speculated that the surface had accumulated exotic compounds while passing through interstellar regions rich in radiation. Over billions of years, exposure to cosmic rays could create long, complex molecules known as tholins, substances that are deep red to brown in color. Such coatings are thought to exist on the moons of the outer planets. If 3I Atlas had collected such material during its endless journey, it might explain the crimson glow now observed. Still, even this possibility did not fit perfectly, for the glow appeared unusually strong, as though the object were not merely coated but actively radiating. In Namibia, during the total lunar eclipse, researchers took advantage of the darkened sky to capture deep exposures. What they found heightened the mystery. The red emission did not only surround the coma, but seemed concentrated at the nucleus like a dim coal burning in space. The idea that the surface itself could produce such radiance challenged assumptions about cometary activity. Some proposed that internal heat, possibly from radioactive isotopes buried deep within, was driving unexpected reactions. Others suggested that the outer layers might conceal volatile compounds that, when exposed by cracks or impacts, glowed faintly before dispersing. But no consensus formed. As days passed, the object betrayed another surprise. The glow shifted. Where once it had burned red, the colour slowly edged toward green. Observers around the world confirmed the transition, noting that the coma now displayed the emerald tones usually associated with cyanogen gas and diatomic carbon. The change was abrupt, occurring over weeks rather than months, leaving astronomers scrambling for explanations. Cyanide compounds had been detected in comets before, but never with such sudden and pronounced dominance. The Very Large Telescope reported a sharp increase in cyanide production on August 25th of the year 2025, coinciding with the colour change. It seemed the surface was releasing these molecules in extraordinary quantities, bathing the coma in a greenish light when struck by solar radiation. The puzzle deepened when the ratio of elements detected in the spectrum was analysed. Nickel appeared, but iron was strangely absent. In the natural processes of stellar fusion and planetary formation, nickel and iron are paired, forged together in the hearts of stars and scattered into the galaxy through supernova explosions. To find nickel isolated without its common companion defied expectation. On Earth, such separation is rare outside industrial refining, where human technology deliberately extracts metals for use. Some scientists hesitated to state the implications, but the anomaly hung in the air. Either 3I Atlas had been formed in an environment unlike any known stellar nursery, or processes not yet understood, perhaps even deliberate ones, had shaped its composition. The red-to-green transition carried more weight than a simple chemical shift. For many researchers, it symbolized the object's refusal to be explained away by ordinary physics. A cometary body should warm-release volatiles, brighten and follow predictable patterns. Instead, this one altered its visible character dramatically, as if unveiling stages of behavior hidden until certain thresholds were reached. What other surprises might emerge as it drew closer to the sun? In scientific meetings, discussions grew heated. Some argued for natural explanations invoking thermal stresses, crustal fracturing, and the layered release of buried ices. Others pointed to the combination of anomalies: colour change, nickel imbalance, irregular brightness, extreme speed, and admitted unease. A few spoke of artificiality cautiously and without certainty, but the suggestion lingered. The surface glow, they said, looked less like scattered light and more like emission, as if the body itself were powered in ways not yet understood. To the public, filtered through news reports and astronomy blogs, the story took on a tone of mystery. Headlines described an interstellar visitor that shifted from red to green, echoing images of strange beacons drifting through space. While scientists resisted sensational interpretations, they could not deny that 3i Atlas had broken expectations at every turn. Behind the careful language of published reports lay a growing sense of tension. If its chemistry could change so quickly, if its surface glowed with such peculiar colours, what might it do when it approached the inner planets? As more telescopes joined the effort, the colour shift became undeniable. Photographs captured from observatories in both hemispheres showed the green hue deepening, particularly near the nucleus. The red faded, replaced by the eerie emerald light of cyanide and carbon molecules. To some it seemed as though the object were shedding one identity for another, as though the mask of red had been lifted to reveal a green face beneath. Such imagery is poetic, but even scientists could not escape the sense of watching a transformation that carried meaning beyond ordinary cometary activity. The implications stretched wider than chemistry. If 3i Atlas could surprise astronomers so profoundly at such distance, then each stage of its approach promised further revelations. Already it had forced reconsideration of the assumption that interstellar objects would behave like familiar comets. Instead, it appeared to follow its own script, revealing characteristics no one had predicted. In its glow, shifting from red to green, scientists saw not merely light, but a signal of difference, a declaration that this was no ordinary fragment of rock and ice. As the object crept closer to the orbit of Mars, the urgency to understand increased. Instruments worldwide remained locked onto it, measuring every variation in brightness, colour and spectral line. Data poured in, yet certainty remained elusive. What lay at the heart of 3i Atlas? Was it merely an unusually large and ancient comet battered by millennia of galactic travel? Or did the chemical strangeness and colour shifts hint at something more, something not born solely of natural processes? For now, only questions filled the silence. The interstellar visitor continued on its path, changing before the eyes of humanity, leaving a trail of mysteries in its wake. In early September of the year 2025, as telescopes tracked 3i Atlas with increasing precision, a new and unexpected feature appeared. Against the familiar image of a comet's tail streaming away from the sun, there emerged something startling, a luminous extension stretching in the opposite direction. Instead of pointing outward as solar wind and radiation pressure always dictate this, bright structure seemed to lean toward the sun itself. At first, some observers assumed the effect was an artifact, a trick of imaging, or a play of perspective. Yet repeated exposures from multiple observatories confirmed the reality. The object carried an anti-tail, a feature almost never seen so clearly in solar system comets, and never with such definition in an interstellar body. This reversed glow challenged one of the most basic expectations of cometary behaviour, for physics dictates that dust and gas are swept away by solar radiation never drawn inward. To see a tail stretching toward the sun was to see a law overturned. The discovery sent ripples through the astronomical community. While headlines in the public press highlighted the strangeness, specialists worked feverishly to provide a natural explanation. One hypothesis soon emerged. Unlike the lighter dust grains that scatter easily under the push of solar wind, heavier fragments may not be blown away so quickly. As the surface of 3i Atlas heated unevenly, chunks of ice or rock, could break free, tumbling outward only slowly. Instead of racing away, these fragments would linger, creating a stream of material that from Earth's perspective appeared to extend sunward. When sunlight struck them, they scattered light back toward our telescopes, giving the illusion of a luminous appendage pointing inward. Some called it an anti-tail, others referred to it as a sunward fan, but the images left no doubt something deeply unusual was happening. The possibility of fragment shedding intrigued researchers, for it hinted at a nucleus under great stress. If parts of its surface were disintegrating in chunks rather than in fine dust, then 3I Atlas might be entering a stage of activity not commonly observed. The implications for its structure were profound. Comets in the solar system often break apart as they near the Sun, their fragile ices unable to withstand the thermal stress. Could this interstellar object be beginning such a process, or was the behavior driven by properties unique to its alien composition? Whatever the cause, the anti-tail became one of the defining mysteries of the object's approach. Images released by observatories showed the strange geometry in haunting detail, a classic tail flowing outward into space, and a bright opposing structure leaning sunward. Together they formed a double-spired apparition unlike any cometary form previously recorded. The sight captured public imagination, evoking descriptions of torches or arrows, and while scientists maintained careful language, they could not deny the shock of watching the laws of dust dynamics seemingly rewritten before their eyes. The explanation of fragment shedding, though persuasive in part, left unresolved questions. Why were the fragments so numerous and so reflective? Why did they form a coherent structure rather than dispersing quickly into space? Some suggested that the shape was aided by gravitational focusing from the Sun, or by complex interactions between the dust and the plasma of the solar wind. Yet simulations struggled to replicate the clarity of the observed anti-tail. As the debate continued, another layer of mystery emerged. Instruments tracking the chemical composition of the coma reported not only cyanide, but also unusual ratios of other molecules, some consistent with high-temperature processing. This suggested that portions of the surface had been altered long before entering the solar system, perhaps by supernova radiation or by passage through dense molecular clouds. Such a history might create surface layers with unexpected volatility, releasing material in bursts and contributing to the strange geometry of the anti-tail. Still, no single explanation satisfied all observers. The anomaly seemed to demand something more, something that transcended familiar models. To many scientists, the anti-tail symbolized the essence of 3I Atlas itself, a body that refused to behave within boundaries, an object whose every revelation defied expectation. It was as if the comet sought to remind humanity that its origin lay far beyond our star's domain, shaped by forces that our science has only begun to grasp. Among the public fascination turned to speculation. Some commentators compared the anti-tail to a beacon or a deliberate signal, though such claims remained outside scientific discourse. Still, the sight of a comet appearing to defy the Sun struck a chord, reinforcing the perception that 3I Atlas was not simply another icy traveller, but something altogether more enigmatic. The anti-tail also added urgency to ongoing preparations for planetary observations. If the object's behaviour could change so dramatically in mid-flight, then its passage near Mars might reveal even stranger events. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, already tasked with observing surface features of the planet, was recalibrated for potential imaging of the visitor. The possibility of capturing the anti-tail from Mars orbit carried deep significance. Unlike Earth-based observations limited by atmosphere, orbital imaging might reveal whether the fragments forming the anti-tail were clustered dispersed or even aligned in patterns beyond expectation. In planning rooms across space agencies, engineers reviewed the trajectories, weighing every chance to obtain data. For scientists, the anti-tail was more than an oddity. It was a clue, perhaps the most important yet, to the internal processes of the object. If fragment shedding were the cause, then by studying the structure of the anti-tail, they could learn about the strength cohesion and layering of the nucleus. If some other less natural process were responsible, then the anti-tail might represent the first direct sign that the body's behavior was not fully explained by known physics. In either case, it became a central focus of investigation. Night after night, telescopes turned to capture its glow, measuring brightness, profiles, angles, and changes over time. Each new dataset deepened the strangeness rather than resolved it. One evening, the anti-tail appeared longer, stretching like a blade toward the sun. Days later, it seemed to shorten, almost vanish, before returning once more. The variability suggested active processes, cycles of release and dispersal that repeated with rhythm but without regularity. The sense grew that 3i Atlas was alive in its own way, not biologically, but dynamically pulsing with bursts of energy, as though responding to thresholds within its structure. The anti-tail marked a turning point in the study of this interstellar visitor. Before its anomalies could be framed within the language of unusual but still natural cometary behavior, a red glow from tholins, a shift to green from cyanide, erratic brightness from jetting. With the anti-tail, the explanations felt thinner, stretched against the weight of observation. It was not that science had failed, but that the object seemed to operate at the edges of what science could comfortably describe. And so the anti-tail hung in the sky like a symbol of defiance, pointing back toward the sun, as though rejecting the forces that shaped every other comet before. To watch it was to be reminded that the universe holds more surprises than rules, and that an interstellar wanderer carrying with it the memory of other stars could challenge the assumptions of human knowledge with the silent gesture of a tail that pointed the wrong way. As debates around the anti-tail swirled, astronomers returned to a question that had remained unsettled from the first weeks of observation: the true size of 3i Atlas. Size is the simplest of measurements yet for an object cloaked in gas dust, and strange behaviors, it becomes one of the most elusive. Early estimates based on brightness suggested a nucleus between 3 and 10 kilometers across, already formidable compared to most comets. But as data accumulated, the calculations began to drift. Some models accounting for the intensity of the coma and the unpredictable flares of light returned figures far larger, reaching up to 46 kilometers in diameter. Such a number jolted even cautious scientists. A body that vast would outweigh the earlier interstellar visitors by orders of magnitude, its mass 1,000,000 times greater than Oumuamua or Borisov. The improbability of such a giant fragment wandering freely through interstellar space unsettled many for the formation and ejection of such a body-stretched plausibility. Comets of that scale are rare even in the solar system. To imagine one travelling unbound for billions of years seemed almost reckless. Yet the data did not easily retract. The paradox of size hung heavy over every discussion. If the nucleus was small, then its brightness must be inflated by extraordinary activity, releasing material at a scale far above normal comets. If it were large, then its very existence challenged assumptions about interstellar debris. Neither option felt comfortable, but one must be true. The debate spilled into conferences, papers, and late-night conversations where astronomers struggled with probabilities. If 3i Atlas were only a few kilometers across, then its mass aligned with expectations, but the erratic brightness and the anti-tail demanded a level of activity difficult to reconcile with such a modest core. If it were truly 46 kilometers wide, then it became a titan among wanderers, a behemoth whose survival across galactic tides defied odds. How could a fragment so large be launched from another system? What gravitational violence had hurled it outward without shattering it? The thought that it might be the remnant of a shattered planet or moon began to circulate quietly, though evidence was scarce. One line of speculation held that the body could be the survivor of a catastrophic collision in another star's planetary system, ejected whole into the void, scarred but intact. Such an origin might explain its unusual chemistry, its imbalance of nickel and iron, its unpredictable behavior. But this was conjecture, not conclusion, and scientists knew the difference. Still, the sheer possibility imbued 3i Atlas with an aura of awe, as if it carried the memory of ancient violence across the stars. Measurements of size relied heavily on albedo, the reflectivity of the surface. If the nucleus were dark, absorbing most of the light, then it must be larger than brightness suggested. If reflective, then smaller. But 3i Atlas complicated this simple calculation with its shifting colours and sudden flares. One night it glowed more brightly, another it dimmed, rendering estimates unreliable. Instruments tuned to infrared wavelengths attempted to detect the thermal emission, another way to gauge the size, but the results were no less ambiguous. The temperature varied unpredictably, perhaps due to uneven surfaces or buried pockets of volatile ices erupting intermittently. Every method returned wide margins of uncertainty. For the public, reports of a possible 46-kilometre nucleus carried dramatic weight. Media outlets seized on the comparison, an interstellar object larger than Mount Everest flying through the solar system at immense speed. Though astronomers tempered such claims with caveats, the idea lodged in the imagination. People pictured a mountain of alien rock hurtling past Mars, a visitor that dwarfed any comet ever seen by human eyes. For scientists, the size estimates carried a different tension. If the larger figure proved true, then the likelihood of observing such an object by chance seemed impossibly low. The solar system had been visited by 2 interstellar objects in recent decades, already a statistical surprise. To add a giant to that list was to stretch coincidence to breaking. Some began to whisper that the anomalies might not be random. Perhaps the trajectory, the alignment with the ecliptic, the curious avoidance of Earth, and even the improbable size were not accidents but parts of a pattern. Yet speculation of artificiality remained dangerous territory, often dismissed as sensationalism. Still, the thought lingered in the quiet moments between data runs. What if size itself was a clue, a marker left deliberately large to draw attention? Observers sought more direct means of constraint. Occultations where the object passed in front of distant stars offered one hope. By measuring how starlight dimmed, and for how long, astronomers could calculate the nucleus's diameter with greater certainty. Networks of telescopes prepared for such events, but predictions were uncertain, and the results awaited analysis. Meanwhile, plans for spacecraft observations gained urgency. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, equipped with its high-resolution camera, could detect features down to 30 meters per pixel. While insufficient to resolve fine detail, it would at least reveal whether the nucleus was compact or sprawling. A flyby from Mars's perspective promised to refine the size estimate in ways Earth-based instruments could not. The enormity of 3i Atlas, whether real or perceived, carried implications beyond astronomy. If it were truly 46 kilometers wide, then its passage through the solar system represented a rare opportunity to study a body massive enough to carry entire layers of geological history. Such an object could preserve the chemistry of interstellar space in bulk, storing compounds accumulated over eons. The thought that probes might one day sample such material stirred the imagination, though no mission was ready in time. The best humanity could do was observe from afar, seizing what knowledge could be gained as the alien mountain passed by. The size debate also touched on a deeper unease. If objects of such scale drift through the galaxy, then the risks they pose cannot be ignored. A chance collision with a planet could alter worlds. That 3I Atlas's trajectory steered it away from Earth was a comfort, but also a reminder of fragility. For now, the solar system was spared. But what of the countless other systems it had brushed past during its journey? How many worlds had felt the shadow of such a traveller? As 3 Atlas moved closer, the urgency to resolve its dimensions grew sharper. Instruments strained for clarity, yet the numbers remained elusive. Was it a small, furious body disguising itself with extraordinary activity, or was it a silent giant, a relic of another system whose mass defied odds? Each possibility carried its own mystery. Scientists knew that in the coming weeks as it approached Mars, new data would tip the balance. But until then, the question of size remained suspended, a riddle orbiting alongside the greater enigmas of chemistry, color, and trajectory. In this uncertainty, the object loomed larger in human imagination than any comet before a vast stranger sliding silently into the heart of the solar system. As October neared, attention fixed on the path of 3I Atlas as it approached its closest encounter with Mars. Predictions placed the flyby for the third day of the month in the year 2025, a passage close enough for spacecraft orbiting the planet to turn their instruments toward the visitor. For the first time, humanity faced the prospect of observing an interstellar object not only from Earth, but from another world entirely. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter circling high above the red planet became the centerpiece of these plans. Its high-resolution camera, capable of resolving features 30 meters across from orbit, could never capture the intricate detail of a surface, yet it promised something more than dots of light. For the first time, the silhouette of an interstellar nucleus might be glimpsed directly, its outline etched against the starfield. Even a blurred image could answer pressing questions. Was the nucleus compact and solid, or sprawling and diffuse, shedding fragments in sheets? Did its brightness come from reflected sunlight, or did it carry luminous material of its own? Each possibility carried implications that reached far beyond one comet. Engineers on Earth worked feverishly to recalibrate instruments and align orbits, threading the constraints of fuel orientation and competing mission priorities. The chance to study such an object would not return in decades, perhaps centuries. Every calculation mattered. If the camera pointed even slightly wrong, the opportunity would slip away. Alongside Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, other missions were evaluated for potential observation. NASA's Psyche spacecraft, en route to its namesake metallic asteroid, was in a position to attempt remote sensing, though its instruments were not designed for cometary imaging. The European Space Agency's JUICE probe launched toward the Jovian system might also gain a distant look. Though the chances were slim, the urgency of the moment brought creative thinking. Any glimpse, any dataset would add to the portrait of the alien traveller. On Earth, the community of scientists prepared in parallel. Telescopes across both hemispheres were scheduled for continuous tracking. Spectrometers tuned to record chemical signatures, radio telescopes prepared to listen for plasma interactions, and even amateur astronomers trained their lenses skyward, eager to contribute. The object's strange behavior ensured that every observation might capture something unexpected. The anticipation of the Mars flyby sharpened these efforts. A close pass meant that Mars itself could act as a vantage point, offering a parallax view that would refine the orbit with unprecedented accuracy. If the trajectory were perfectly natural, the new data would confirm it. But if slight deviations occurred, if the path bent in ways gravity alone could not explain, then suspicions about artificial maneuvers would ignite. Quietly, this possibility lingered. While official statements focused on natural processes, many acknowledged that 3I Atlas had already broken rules. A red glow that became green nickel without iron, an anti-tail, pointing sunward, a size that refused easy measurement, and a trajectory improbably aligned with the ecliptic. Each anomaly could be explained separately, but together they formed a pattern that felt uncanny. The Mars flyby represented the best chance to test those doubts. If the orbit altered even subtly while hidden behind the Sun, then the implications would be profound. For planetary scientists, the encounter offered another perspective. Mars itself might be affected, however briefly, by the passage of the interstellar body. Though no collision was expected, the gravitational interaction could produce faint tidal effects or trigger meteor streams if fragments broke free. Instruments on the Martian surface, from rovers to landers, were placed on alert to watch the skies. Perhaps a fragment might enter the thin atmosphere and burn as a meteor, a fleeting streak from another star system written across a Martian sky. The thought filled researchers with awe. Never before had interstellar material been observed so near a planetary surface. The anticipation was not confined to scientists. Around the world, the public awaited the encounter. News outlets reported the countdown to October 3rd, framing the story as a cosmic meeting between Mars and a stranger from the stars. Artists rendered images of the red planet with a glowing green comet, sweeping past a vision that captured both imagination and unease. Was this a messenger, a threat, or merely a silent traveller? The questions resonated beyond science, touching the old human instinct to read meaning into celestial events. Yet for all the speculation, the reality remained one of data. Every telescope, every probe, every camera prepared to collect photons, numbers, and spectra. The story of 3I Atlas would be told through those numbers, through the discipline of careful observation. And yet beneath the precision, wonder lingered. To think of an object older than the solar system passing within reach of Mars was to confront the immensity of time. This body had travelled through the galaxy for billions of years, wandering from star to star until chance or something more brought it near our planetary neighbour. In that long voyage it had crossed supernova remnants, interstellar clouds, and the gravity wells of countless stars. Its surface carried the scars of those encounters. To study it even briefly was to peer into the memory of the galaxy itself. The Mars flyby promised not only answers but new mysteries. Would the anti-tail persist as it neared the Sun, or would it fragment entirely? Would the green glow deepen or vanish? Would the trajectory curve more than expected, hinting at control? These questions infused the days leading up to October. Scientists and the public alike knew that whatever was seen, it would not fit neatly into any textbook. It would change the story of interstellar visitors forever. Behind the excitement lay a quiet anxiety. If 3I Atlas proved to be larger than believed, its passage carried symbolic weight. A 46-kilometre body sweeping past Mars underscored the vulnerability of planets to cosmic chance. If one such object could arrive, then more must wander the galaxy. Earth's safety was a matter of luck. That this particular visitor would pass close to Mars but far from Earth felt like fortune, yet also stirred unease. The alignment seemed too neat, too convenient, as if scripted. By the eve of the flyby, every preparation was complete. Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter had its sequences loaded, telescopes on Earth were aligned, and scientists waited in tense expectation. In the silence of space, 3I. Atlas continued its path, indifferent to the anticipation it inspired. It did not slow, did not deviate, at least not yet. It glowed faintly green, carried its anti-tail like a banner, and drifted steadily toward the rendezvous with the red planet. In those final nights before the encounter, One truth dominated every thought: humanity was about to witness something no generation had ever seen. Before a meeting between a planet of our solar system and a traveller from another star, as the date of the Mars flyby approached, astronomers refined their simulations of 3I Atlas's trajectory. What emerged was a pattern that disturbed even the most cautious voices. Unlike the steep, random angles taken by other interstellar visitors, this body's orbit lay almost flush with the ecliptic plane tilted by less than 5 degrees. Such alignment was so unlikely that statisticians calculated the chance at roughly 1 in 500. It was not impossible, but it was rare enough to demand attention. The ecliptic plane is the thin sheet in which the planets of the solar system orbit the flattened remnant of the disk of gas and dust from which they formed. To find a visitor from beyond the sun's influence entering along that same plane was like watching a leaf drift onto a narrow path after tumbling from a distant hilltop. By every expectation, interstellar bodies should arrive at random inclinations drawn by the pull of the sun but otherwise unaffected by the geometry of planetary orbits. To see one slide so neatly into line felt uncanny. Scientists attempted to soothe their unease with probability. After all, even rare events occur eventually, and perhaps this was such a case. Yet when placed alongside the object's other anomalies, the colour shift, the anti-tail, the chemical oddities, the trajectory's precision carried a weight of implication. The idea grew that 3I Atlas might not simply be a random fragment, but a body whose path followed a plan. The alignment with the ecliptic meant more than visual symmetry. It also brought the object into close encounters with several planets. Its projected course brushed near Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, each flyby offering opportunities for study, but also raising questions. For spacecraft navigation engineers, the resemblance to deliberate planning was striking. When missions such as Voyager were designed, their trajectories were calculated to pass multiple planets in sequence, using gravity assist to maximize efficiency. To see an interstellar object follow a course so reminiscent of human engineering stirred a quiet shiver. Could it be coincidence? Of course, but could it be otherwise? The thought lingered. As simulations extended forward, another detail emerged. At the moment, 3I Atlas would reach perihelion. Its closest approach to the Sun-Earth itself would be positioned on the opposite side of the star as far away as possible. This avoidance was striking. For some, it was only another coincidence, an accident of timing in celestial mechanics. For others, it was too precise to dismiss. The trajectory seemed almost scripted to skim by neighbouring worlds, yet miss Earth entirely, as though deliberately avoiding direct encounter. Debate swelled in academic circles. Many urged caution, warning against sensationalism. Probability, they reminded, is not destiny. Yet the unease persisted. Too many layers of improbability had stacked together. Statistically, unlikely colour changes, unusual chemistry, an anti-tail uncertain size, and now a trajectory threading through planetary alignments with uncanny precision. It was as if each anomaly alone might be explained, but together they formed a chorus of strangeness too loud to ignore. The public, following the story through news outlets and scientific briefings, seized upon the idea of intention. Was 3I Atlas a natural body or something else? Online forums filled with speculation about alien probes, interstellar beacons, or ancient derelicts drifting on forgotten missions. Scientists resisted such interpretations, preferring to focus on observable data, yet they could not fully control the narrative. The trajectory itself invited speculation, for it mirrored too closely the paths carefully plotted by human hands when sending machines across the solar system. Meanwhile, observatories continued to track every nuance. The alignment with the ecliptic provided advantages, for it allowed long stretches of observation, without the object vanishing far above or below the plane of planetary motion. Yet it also carried symbolic weight, for humanity could not help but see significance in the way the alien body moved through familiar lanes. The thought that it might pass near Jupiter was especially tantalizing. The giant planet's immense gravity could alter its path, revealing whether the trajectory truly followed natural laws. If gravity bent the orbit exactly as predicted, then skepticism about intentionality might ease. But if the deflection differed even by a subtle margin, suspicions would sharpen. Already preparations were made for radio telescopes to track the object as it passed. Some wondered if beyond mere reflection it might emit signals of its own. So far, nothing but natural spectra had been heard. Yet the association with Sagittarius, the region from which unexplained radio signals like the famous "wow" burst, once originated, kept imaginations alive. The uncanny avoidance of Earth sharpened these musings. If chance alone guided 3I Atlas, then Earth's absence from its path was no more meaningful than the alignment with the ecliptic. But if purpose guided it, then the fact that it swept near Venus, Mars, and Jupiter but not Earth might be deliberate. Was Earth avoided as a precaution, a courtesy, or an indifference? The questions grew more unsettling the longer they were considered. In private conversations, some astronomers admitted their discomfort. The resemblance to engineered trajectories was not easy to dismiss. The Voyager and Pioneer missions had been plotted to thread planetary flybys in sequence, gaining speed and data along the way. 3I Atlas seemed to echo that principle, as if mimicking a design humanity itself had only recently achieved. Was it coincidence? Was it cosmic irony? Or was it evidence that nature and intention can sometimes appear indistinguishable? As October's flyby approached, the focus remained practical. Instruments had to be ready, telescopes aligned, data channels secured. Yet beneath the surface of these preparations, the deeper intrigue pulsed. Humanity was watching not merely a cometary body, but a riddle written in orbit. Every curve of its path hinted at stories untold. Every anomaly seemed to whisper that this was no ordinary fragment. And so, as the interstellar traveller glided ever closer, it carried not just dust and ice from another system, but the weight of suspicion, curiosity, and wonder. Its alignment with the ecliptic plane transformed it from an astronomical object into a puzzle of intent, a body that seemed both stranger and mirror, reminding us of our own engineered craft, even as it defied the explanations crafted by science. Whether by coincidence or design, 3I Atlas moved with the grace of purpose, threading through the solar system, along a line too precise to ignore, and leaving in its wake the unsettling question of whether humanity was truly observing nature or something that had chosen to be seen to. As 3I Atlas swept deeper into the inner solar system, the question of Earth's absence from its path grew louder. By chance or by choice, its closest approach to the Sun would occur at a time when Earth lay on the far side of the star, hidden, shielded, and distant. Astronomers knew that orbital mechanics could produce such coincidences, yet the context made it difficult to accept as simple accident. The trajectory not only aligned with the ecliptic plane, but also threaded close to Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, as if stepping deliberately from one planetary neighborhood to the next. To see Earth excluded from this sequence was to feel a design, or at least the shadow of one. Scientists attempted to quiet speculation with models. They demonstrated how an object ejected at certain velocities and angles from a distant star system could by sheer chance intersect the solar system in ways that mimicked planning. Gravity, they said, could sculpt apparent intention out of randomness. Yet even as the equation satisfied logic, the unease persisted. To the human mind, patterns carry weight. The echo of human spacecraft trajectories, the deliberate seeming planetary flybys, the uncanny avoidance of Earth together, they created the sense that 3i Atlas was moving not only through space, but through expectation, weaving a path designed to be noticed. In observatories across the world, astronomers debated quietly. Some argued that avoiding Earth was the natural outcome of probability. After all, Earth occupies only a small slice of orbital space. Most interstellar visitors would pass by without close approach. Others countered that the timing was too precise, the distance too neatly maximized. If the body had arrived months earlier or later, the geometry might have been different. Why now, and why this path? Could the object's trajectory have been altered long before, perhaps by distant gravitational nudges to time its passage with this particular arrangement? The idea that an object wandering for billions of years could arrive at precisely this moment stretched belief. Yet the data spoke plainly: when it reached perihelion Earth would be absent, hidden beyond the sun. Public fascination turned these discussions into waves of speculation. Commentators described the avoidance as cautious, even considerate, as if the visitor wished to pass without alarming Earth directly. Others suggested it might be deliberate concealment, that by staying opposite the sun, it could obscure any unexpected maneuvers. After all, while hidden behind the star, its path could change without earthly instruments, detecting the deviation until too late. This possibility stirred both fear and wonder. The thought that 3i Atlas might alter course while invisible struck at the heart of scientific vigilance. Every observatory knew the critical period would come when the object slipped into solar glare. Would it emerge on the expected line, or would it reappear offset, bearing evidence of unseen forces? The alignment carried deeper symbolism as well. Earth, with its life and watchful eyes, was excluded. Mars, lifeless but still a world of interest, would receive the close encounter. Jupiter, with its swirling storms and vast system of moons, would bend the trajectory. Venus, shrouded in clouds, would also lie near the path. It was as though the visitor sought worlds, for reasons not understood, while deliberately stepping around the inhabited planet. Rational explanations insisted on chance, but the imagery was too compelling to ignore. The very geometry of the orbit seemed to whisper meaning. Scientists stressed caution, but they too were human. In private, some admitted to feeling unsettled. The resemblance to engineered paths lingered in their minds. The Voyager probes had been designed to use planetary flybys to gain momentum, to pass near multiple worlds in sequence. 3i Atlas mirrored that principle with eerie precision. Was this the universe's coincidence, or was humanity glimpsing a design older than itself? The upcoming Mars encounter gained greater urgency under this light. If the visitor avoided Earth, then Mars became the stage for revelation. Observers hoped that the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter would capture data to resolve the questions. If the nucleus appeared irregular, shedding fragments, then perhaps the behavior could be explained by natural stress. If it shone with unnatural uniformity, or emitted light in unexpected ways, then the implications would deepen. Meanwhile, theoretical work explored scenarios for artificial origin. Some speculated that an ancient civilization might have constructed probes disguised as comets, designed to drift for millennia until reaching new systems. Others proposed that natural bodies could be co-opted, hollowed out, or steered to serve as carriers. The nickel imbalance, the colour, changes the anti-tail, and now the trajectory avoidance of Earth. Each anomaly could be seen as evidence. Yet without proof, such ideas remained speculation whispers at the edges of conferences and footnotes in papers. Still, the public imagination seized them with fervour. Documentary and articles described the visitor as a messenger, a scout, or even a watchful machine. The object became less a comet and more a cipher, a symbol of cosmic possibility. In reality, the science remained cautious. Observers tracked every moment of its passage, refining orbits, confirming alignments, and preparing for the perihelion. The knowledge that Earth would be hidden did not deter vigilance. Telescopes at solar observatories prepare to scan the space just beyond the sun's glare, seeking any hint of deviation. Radio telescopes stood ready to capture signals, natural or otherwise. The possibility that 3i Atlas might behave differently during its hidden moment loomed over every plan. As the days counted down, a strange duality gripped human perception. On one hand, 3i Atlas was just another comet-like body, obeying gravity, releasing gases, scattering light. On the other hand, it was a mirror of human imagination, a body whose anomalies seemed to form a message written across space. Earth's absence from its path was either meaningless or profoundly meaningful, depending on the lens through which it was seen. Science leaned toward the former, but wonder leaned toward the latter. The object itself remained silent, indifferent, gliding toward its close pass, with Mars glowing green and carrying its impossible anti-tail. Its trajectory traced the thin sheet of the ecliptic, brushing planetary neighborhoods, but steering clear of Earth as though it knew where eyes would be watching and where they would not. In that silence, humanity projected its fears, its hopes, and its questions. Was avoidance mere chance, or was it choice? When 3i Atlas emerged from behind the sun, would it still follow the line of physics, or would it step onto a path of intent? Until then, all that could be done was to watch, to measure, and to wait for the revelation written into its orbit. Long before the Mars flyby drew near, the origins of 3i Atlas had been traced back through space. Orbital calculations revealed that it entered the solar system from the direction of the Sagittarius constellation. This was not surprising in itself, for interstellar objects can arrive from any region of the sky. Yet the connection with Sagittarius carried weight, for that region had already played a curious role in the history of cosmic anomalies. It was there in the year 1977 that a powerful burst of radio energy was detected by a telescope in Ohio. The signal, known ever since as the WOW signal, lasted only 72 seconds and was never repeated. Its strength and narrowband precision defied explanation. Some argued for natural sources, others wondered about artificial origin. For decades, the WOW signal remained an unsolved enigma. That 3i Atlas now appeared from the same patch of sky struck many as uncanny. Though astronomers cautioned against drawing connections, the human mind is quick to link patterns. A mysterious radio burst and a mysterious visitor, both traced to Sagittarius, felt like more than coincidence. To some, it was as though a chapter left unfinished nearly half a century before was now resuming with new words written across the heavens. In the halls of observatories and universities, the speculation was cautious. Correlation is not causation. Scientists reminded themselves, and space is vast. Sagittarius occupies a broad region near the center of the galaxy, teeming with stars, clouds, and energetic events. The probability that unrelated anomalies might appear from that direction was high. Yet the juxtaposition persisted in thought. The WOW signal had been a singular event, remarkable in its clarity. No natural explanation had fully satisfied the data, and now, out of the same stellar crowd, an interstellar object had entered itself, brimming with anomalies. The echoes of the past reverberated through the present. Instruments sensitive to radio waves were trained on 3i Atlas in case it emitted anything more than reflected light. So far, nothing unusual had been heard, only the faint whispers of plasma interactions and the hiss of cosmic background noise. Still, the vigilance continued. Some suggested that if 3i Atlas carried technology, it might remain silent, listening rather than broadcasting, or it might use channels undetectable to our instruments. Others proposed that its very trajectory was communication, its presence a kind of signal written not in waves but in motion. To the scientific mind, such ideas tread dangerous ground, for extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. And yet history had already shown that the object was extraordinary. The possibility, however slim, could not be ignored. Beyond the association with Sagittarius lay the deeper question of time. If 3I Atlas truly came from that region, then it must have travelled for millions, perhaps billions of years to reach the solar system. Its chemistry bore marks of such antiquity: surface layers bombarded by cosmic rays, volatile ices, altered by passage through radiation fields, and unusual elemental ratios hinting at environments unlike those near Earth. The nickel without iron, so perplexing to researchers, might be a signature of its distant birthplace. Perhaps it was forged in the heart of a massive star whose death scattered fragments differently from the norm. Perhaps it passed through remnants of a supernova, where magnetic fields and shocks separated elements in unexpected ways. Or perhaps, as some dared to ask, it was the result of deliberate processing long ago. The WOW signal and 3I Atlas together formed a tapestry of possibility. If connected, they might represent two threads of the same mystery, a signal once received, now followed by a messenger. If unrelated, they remained independently puzzling, each demanding explanation, each reminding humanity that the universe is stranger than expected. For the public, the narrative of connection was irresistible. Headlines spoke of the WOW signal's visitor, an alien comet from the same constellation. Artists imagined the radio burst as a greeting, and 3I Atlas as the arrival. Though scientists resisted such storytelling, they could not silence it. Imagination once kindled spreads. Within the scientific community, the focus remained practical. Observatories measured the object's chemical output, its changing brightness, its path across the stars. Yet even here, the association with Sagittarius was not ignored. In private, many admitted to wondering whether history was unfolding in a pattern too intricate to be dismissed. Could the WOW signal have been a transmission from a civilization that, like us, watched the skies? Could 3I Atlas be a remnant of that civilization, a vessel adrift or a probe disguised as a comet? Such thoughts hovered in the background, rarely spoken aloud, yet never entirely absent. The object's strangeness fueled them at every turn. The red-to-green transformation, the anti-tail, the improbable alignment with the ecliptic, the avoidance of Earth, the ambiguous size, each feature suggested that this was no ordinary fragment of rock and ice. If it were natural, then it was the most peculiar natural object yet discovered. If it were not, then the implications were beyond imagination. Meanwhile, the object pressed onward. Its speed did not falter, its trajectory remained precise, and its glow shifted subtly as solar heat dug deeper into its layers. Instruments on Earth and in orbit continued their vigil, recording terabytes of data that would take years to analyze. But the human response beyond data was one of awe. The sense grew that something from beyond the solar system had not only entered, but had done so with timing, with precision, and with echoes of a mystery that predated its arrival. Whether natural or artificial, 3I Atlas carried significance. It reminded humanity of its place within a galaxy filled with unknowns, where signals can appear without warning, and where objects can arrive unbidden from the depths of interstellar space. The connection to Sagittarius was both fact and symbol. Fact because orbital calculations pointed clearly to that constellation. Symbol because Sagittarius had already been the stage for one of the most enduring enigmas in astronomy. To link the two was to weave science and mystery into a single thread, a narrative that carried both caution and wonder. As October advanced and the Mars flyby drew near, this sense of narrative deepened. Scientists prepared for data. The public prepared for spectacle. And in the quiet of night, when telescopes tracked the faint green glow against the black, the association with Sagittarius lingered like a whisper. A signal once heard an object now seen both pointing to the same corner of the sky. Coincidence, perhaps, but coincidence on a scale so vast it seemed almost designed. The closer 3-Eye Atlas moved toward the Sun, the more carefully astronomers scrutinized its trajectory. By now, thousands of precise measurements had been gathered enough to chart its course with extraordinary accuracy. What emerged from those numbers continued to unsettle. The orbit of this interstellar traveller was not steeply angled, not random, but instead almost perfectly aligned with the plane of the planets. Less than 5 degrees of tilt separated its path from the thin sheet in which Earth, Mars, and the other worlds circle the Sun. The improbability of this arrangement was difficult to overstate. Most interstellar bodies arrive on sharp inclinations cutting through the solar system like needles passing through a disk. The likelihood that one should drift in almost parallel was vanishingly small. Calculations placed the odds at around 1 in 500, and even then the comparison understated the sense of unease, for the object did not merely glide along the plane, but did so in a way that brought it sequentially near Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. Its motion resembled nothing so much as the gravity-assist trajectories plotted by engineers for human spacecraft. The resemblance was uncomfortable. When the Voyager missions were launched in the late 1970s, their designers carefully calculated encounters with multiple planets, using each flyby to adjust speed and direction. It was an achievement of precision born of mathematics and intent. Now, an object from beyond the solar system appeared to follow a similarly efficient course, threading close to planetary neighborhoods, as though choosing them deliberately. Some researchers dismissed the similarity as illusion. After all, the solar system is filled with planets, and any body aligned with the ecliptic will naturally pass near some of them. Chance alone could explain it. Yet the doubt persisted. The pattern felt too close, too deliberate to ignore. Especially striking was the way Earth seemed excluded. At the time of perihelion, Earth would be far across the Sun, maximally distant from the visitor. For some, this was a quirk of timing. For others, it was avoidance. To them, it looked as though the interstellar body were skimming along the plane of planets, while deliberately bypassing the inhabited one. Such thoughts spread uneasily through the scientific community, rarely published but often whispered. If coincidence, then it was remarkable. If not, then it was intention, and the implications of intention were staggering. Observatories redoubled their efforts to track the path. Tiny deviations could reveal whether the orbit was purely gravitational or influenced by something else. So far, the arc followed the mathematics of Newton and Einstein, bending only as it should. But skeptics pointed out that maneuvers might occur when hidden. When the object slipped behind the Sun beyond the reach of direct observation, even a subtle change in velocity or angle could alter its future course. If it reappeared offset, the evidence would be undeniable. Some scientists entertained the possibility of non-gravitational forces. Outgassing the release of jets from the nucleus could act like thrusters shifting the path slightly. Such behavior had been invoked for Oumuamua when its acceleration did not perfectly match predictions. Perhaps 3-Eye Atlas was similar, its outburst powerful enough to alter its course. But here too the explanation faltered. Outgassing should produce visible jets features that could be measured and modelled. With 3-Eye Atlas the activity was irregular, the brightness unpredictable, but no coherent jets had been confirmed. The possibility of hidden forces lingered. To many observers, the resemblance to planned trajectories remained the most unsettling aspect of all. It was not simply that the object moved within the ecliptic, but that it appeared to exploit planetary alignments as if following a map. The comparison to Voyager was made again and again, not because it proved anything, but because it illuminated the uncanny sense of purpose in the orbit. The conversation spilled beyond scientific circles. Among the public, the narrative of intention spread quickly. Commentators described the object as a probe or a messenger, threading through planetary neighborhoods with calculated grace. Artists imagined vast alien craft disguised as comets steering invisibly past worlds. While scientists insisted on natural explanations, they could not fully dispel the imagery. The orbit itself invited such speculation. Within the scientific community, some sought to reclaim the mystery without abandoning rigor. They pointed out that improbable trajectories are not impossible. Rare alignments do occur, and over billions of years interstellar debris must scatter across every conceivable path. The fact that one such object had now appeared was statistically unlikely, but not impossible. Probability, after all, is a measure of expectation, not destiny. Yet even these voices admitted that the alignment deepened the puzzle. For an interstellar object already burdened with anomalies, the trajectory added another layer of improbability. Each piece of the puzzle might be explained separately, but together they formed a pattern difficult to dismiss. Plans for the Mars flyby became ever more urgent under this light. If the trajectory carried even subtle deviations during the close approach, then suspicions of intent would sharpen. Instruments were primed to measure every flicker of position, every shift in speed. If the path held steady, then the orbit could be explained by gravity alone. But if not, then humanity would face the possibility that it was observing more than just a cometary wanderer. Beyond the calculations lay a quieter truth. To watch an object from another star slide so perfectly into the planetary plane was to feel the vastness of the galaxy in motion. Whether by chance or by choice, the path of 3i Atlas reminded humanity that it is not isolated, that the solar system is only one stage among countless others, and that visitors can arrive at any time carrying mysteries too deep for easy answers. As the weeks counted down, the orbit of 3i Atlas remained a riddle. It was both natural and unnatural, both ordinary and uncanny. Its path through the ecliptic plane carried the weight of probability and the whisper of purpose. In its silence, humanity projected its questions, knowing that when it emerged from behind the sun, the answers might not comfort but astonish. Until then, the orbit remained what it had always been, a line of mystery drawn across the solar system, precise, improbable, and unforgettable. The moment astronomers realized that Earth would be positioned on the far side of the Sun during the perihelion of 3i Atlas, a hush fell across discussions. The timing seemed uncanny. Interstellar objects should pass through the solar system at random orientations and epochs, their courses dictated by chance and physics. Yet here was one whose approach avoided Earth with uncanny neatness. At perihelion, Earth would be hidden unreachable, as far away from the traveller as possible. In scientific terms, the geometry could be explained. Planetary orbits are predictable, and any random trajectory can by coincidence miss one world while brushing another. Yet the avoidance of Earth was too precise to sit comfortably within the narrative of randomness. To many it seemed as though Earth had been deliberately bypassed. For some astronomers the fact was troubling. While no evidence pointed to anything beyond coincidence, the alignment came against the backdrop of anomalies already observed: the red to green transformation, the nickel without iron, the anti-tail, the immense uncertain size, and the improbable alignment with the ecliptic plane. Now added to these was an avoidance that felt purposeful. A single anomaly may be dismissed, two may be rationalized, but together a chain of strangeness emerged, each link strengthening the impression that something unusual, perhaps even deliberate, was at play. Among the public, the idea caught fire. Commentators speculated that the visitor was steering clear of Earth for reasons unknown. Some suggested caution, as if the object were programmed to avoid contact with inhabited worlds. Others suggested secrecy, that while hidden behind the sun, it might alter course toward a destination of its choosing. In both visions, Earth was excluded not by accident but by intent. The thought unsettled many. Could something so vast and ancient truly carry purpose? The scientific community worked to temper such speculations. They demonstrated how often Earth is missed by comets and asteroids, how rare direct encounters truly are, and how coincidence is part of the dance of celestial mechanics. They reminded the public that probability does not mean certainty, and that rare events must occur eventually. Yet in private, many admitted to unease. The avoidance of Earth was a fact, whatever its cause, and in the silence of space, facts take on weight. Plans for observation intensified. If 3i Atlas did alter course while hidden behind the sun, instruments must be ready to detect it the moment it re-emerged. Radio telescopes prepared to scan for unusual signals. Solar observatories prepared to track the space near the sun's glare. Orbital spacecraft were recalibrated to maximize coverage. For weeks surrounding perihelion, the solar system itself would become a giant net straining to capture any sign of deviation. Meanwhile, theorists wrestled with implications. If the object was natural, then the avoidance of Earth was simply a quirk, meaningless except as coincidence. But if the path were guided, then the absence of Earth in its course might be the most important fact of all. Was Earth deliberately avoided because it was inhabited? Was Mars chosen as a closer target because it was lifeless? Was Jupiter included for its immense gravity, a stepping stone for a future path? Such questions hovered at the boundary of science and speculation, difficult to voice, yet impossible to ignore. The avoidance also raised a deeper unease. If 3i Atlas had chosen not to approach Earth, then it was aware of Earth. And if it was aware, then it possessed knowledge or intent that humanity had never attributed to an interstellar body. The leap from comet to construct was vast, yet the trajectory itself invited such thoughts. To many, the orbit looked not like randomness, but like a decision. Observatories continued to track its behavior, searching for natural explanations. Outgassing might alter paths slightly, they argued, creating the appearance of steering. Solar tides might bend the orbit subtly, pushing it away from Earth's position. Yet such forces were too weak to account for the scale of avoidance. Only deliberate course selection made sense if one was willing to admit the possibility. As the days shortened and the flyby neared, the anticipation grew tense. Humanity prepared for a cosmic revelation. Would 3i Atlas emerge from behind the sun on the expected trajectory, proving that chance alone was at work? Or would it reappear offset, bearing the unmistakable fingerprint of maneuver? Either outcome would be profound. If it stayed the course, it would still be the strangest natural object ever seen, a body whose anomalies demanded explanation. If it shifted, then it would be something else entirely, something humanity had never witnessed before. In the nights leading to perihelion, the skies grew restless with anticipation. Astronomers scanned the heavens, reporters filled the airwaves, and ordinary people looked upward, imagining a vast green glowing body slipping silently past the sun, unseen for now, but soon to reappear. Earth, they knew, was excluded, distant and shielded. Mars instead would stand as witness. And so, in those final days, humanity waited, suspended between certainty and wonder, aware that the geometry of avoidance might hold meaning or might not, but unable to escape the feeling that 3i Atlas was more than chance, more than comet, more than wanderer. It was a riddle written in orbit, and the answer was yet to come. Even before the Mars encounter began, the association between 3I Atlas and earlier mysteries returned with force. The most famous of these was the WOW signal, detected in the late 1970s by the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio. That burst of narrow-band radio energy had no satisfactory explanation arriving once, and never repeating with a clarity that resisted dismissal. For nearly half a century it remained an open question, a single anomaly preserved in astronomical records. Now, with 3I Atlas traced back to Sagittarius, the very region from which the WOW signal had once seemed to originate, connections were inevitable. Scientists urged restraint, warning against conflating unrelated events, yet the coincidence weighed heavily. One unexplained signal, one unexplained visitor, both linked by direction. The universe is vast and Sagittarius covers a wide swathe of sky, but the symbolic resonance was undeniable. To the public imagination, the object seemed almost an answer to a call, a silent arrival long after a message was first heard. Researchers debated the plausibility of such a connection. The WOW signal might have been natural, a fleeting burst from hydrogen clouds, or a reflection of terrestrial interference. But its strength and frequency still troubled analysts. To pair it with an interstellar object arriving decades later from the same general direction felt like a narrative too powerful to ignore. Theories emerged that stretched beyond convention. Some suggested that 3I Atlas could be a probe sent from the civilization that produced the signal dispatched long before or long after the burst now drifting into the solar system. Others speculated that it might be debris an ancient vessel left adrift, its signal long silenced, but its body still moving. More cautious voices pointed out that interstellar travel takes immense time. If 3I Atlas had been launched from a system near Sagittarius, it would have taken millions of years to arrive. To tie it to a signal received only decades ago was to ignore the scale of galactic distance. Yet even those who dismissed a direct connection could not shake the unease. Patterns carry power even when reason urges against them. Beyond the WOW signal, Sagittarius had long been a theatre of mystery. The galactic centre lies within its boundaries, a region filled with dense star fields, black holes and bursts of energy. To receive both signals and objects from that direction was not surprising given its activity, but it carried weight nonetheless. The human mind cannot help but draw lines between anomalies, weaving them into stories. 3I Atlas became part of that story, a new chapter, written in green light and anti-tail radiance. Radio telescopes across Earth and in orbit tuned to listen as the object passed. They hoped for emissions, pulses, or even subtle fluctuations in reflected solar noise that might hint at artificiality. Yet silence prevailed. Only natural spectra filled the receivers, the hiss of outgassing molecules, the whisper of ionized plasma. If 3I Atlas carried secrets, they were hidden beneath its surface, not broadcast to space. Still the vigilance continued. Some argued that silence itself could be meaningful, that if the object were more than natural, it might prefer observation to contact. The trajectory already suggested careful avoidance. Why not quietness as well? Perhaps the object was listening, gathering data as it passed, uninterested in announcing itself. This speculation pushed the boundaries of science, yet it persisted because the alternative coincidence upon coincidence strained belief. Within scientific meetings, discussions returned to more grounded hypotheses. Could the nickel without iron have been forged in unusual stellar environments? Could the colour shift from red to green be explained by layered chemistry, with deeper deposits of cyanogen exposed as outer tholin sublimated? Could the anti-tail be produced by fragments shedding heavy ice crystals trailing backward against expectation? Each answer addressed part of the puzzle, but none addressed all. To explain one anomaly was to leave another untouched. The puzzle of 3i Atlas was not a single question, but a constellation of questions, each shining with its own uncertainty. The WOW signal lingered as one of those stars in the constellation of mystery. It was never claimed by science as a message, yet it was never erased. Its memory lived on, and the arrival of a strange interstellar visitor from the same quadrant revived it with new intensity. People remembered that moment in 1977, when a researcher had scribbled "Wow" in the margins of a printout, startled by the strength of the detection. Now in 2025, people looked up at images of 3i Atlas glowing green against the night and wondered if another exclamation would soon be warranted. The resemblance to human spacecraft trajectories added fuel to this fire. If the object followed a path of planetary flybys, if it avoided Earth deliberately, then perhaps it was not only a body but a mission. Could the WOW signal have been a beacon and 3i Atlas the vessel? Could the two anomalies separated by decades be fragments of a larger pattern, evidence of activity beyond our world? The sober answer was no, not in any simple way. The timescales did not align, the distances did not match. But the symbolic answer was yes, in the sense that both anomalies spoke of limits to human knowledge of phenomena that science had not yet explained, and in that sense the two were linked not by cause but by mystery itself. As the Mars encounter neared, this mystery grew heavier. If 3i Atlas revealed nothing unusual, then it would remain simply a comet, albeit the strangest yet known. But if it showed even one feature inconsistent with natural behavior, then the questions would explode. Scientists braced themselves for either outcome, knowing that the object's story was not theirs to dictate, but theirs only to watch. The association with Sagittarius, the echoes of the WOW signal, the improbable orbit, the anomalies of colour and chemistry, all these threads wove together into a tapestry of speculation. In the silence of space, the object glided on, indifferent to interpretation. It did not explain itself, did not announce intent, did not reveal origin. It only moved, following a line of light that brought it close to Mars, far from Earth, and deeper into human imagination. Whether coincidence or communication, its presence was undeniable. It was here now, passing through the solar system like a question written in the stars, awaiting the answers no one yet had the power to give. In the final weeks before perihelion, attention turned to what might happen once 3i Atlas slipped behind the Sun. The possibility that it could alter course unseen weighed heavily on the minds of astronomers. Natural comets and asteroids follow predictable arcs, shaped only by gravity and by the modest forces of outgassing. But here was a body that had already confounded predictions again and again. Its colour had shifted dramatically. Its chemistry was unlike any catalogued comet. Its anti-tail had pointed the wrong way, and its orbit threaded too neatly through planetary alignments. To imagine that it might use the Sun itself as a cover for manoeuvre was not fantasy, but an extension of unease. For weeks, observatories prepared for the moment of disappearance. Telescopes tracked every fragment of data until the last possible second, measuring position and velocity with exquisite precision. With those numbers, astronomers could project exactly where the object should emerge on the far side of the Sun. Any deviation, even subtle, would be noticed. If 3i Atlas reappeared offset from prediction, then the explanation could not be ignored. In conference calls and closed-door meetings, scenarios were discussed. If the object manoeuvred, it might be by controlled release of material creating thrust. Jets of gas could in principle mimic propulsion, but such a process would be chaotic and visible, not precise and hidden. The suspicion that it might execute a purposeful course change could not be erased. What if it altered direction to approach a specific planet? What if it released smaller fragments while concealed in the sun's glare, dispatching them toward hidden trajectories? These possibilities, though speculative, were acknowledged. Humanity had no precedent for observing intention in the motion of celestial bodies, yet the behavior of 3i Atlas seemed to invite the question. Some even dared to imagine it might decelerate, though no natural force could explain such a feat. Others suggested that it might vanish entirely, its glow extinguished, as though it had used the sun as cover to slip away unseen. To prepare for these outcomes, solar observatories on Earth and in space were tasked with continuous monitoring of the region near perihelion. Coronagraphs designed to block the sun's glare would attempt to catch a glimpse of the visitor in silhouette. Instruments aboard spacecraft near the sun, including probes studying solar wind, were programmed to capture any anomaly. Even radio telescopes were kept on alert, listening for bursts or silences that might accompany an unexpected maneuver. The scientific community knew that if 3i Atlas behaved exactly as predicted, it would still be remarkable, but if it did not, then it would represent one of the most important discoveries in history. The idea of intentional maneuver sharpened with each day. Journalists asked scientists directly whether it was possible that 3i Atlas was artificial. Most resisted the label, repeating that all available evidence was consistent with natural explanations. Yet when pressed, some admitted that the trajectory left room for speculation. The public, less constrained by caution, embraced the possibility. Popular imagination described it as a probe entering stealth mode, hiding behind the sun before revealing its true path. Stories circulated of fragments splitting off to seed the solar system, or of the object turning inward toward Mercury or outward toward Jupiter. Each theory reflected human hopes and fears, projections of meaning onto silence. Among scientists, the more conservative view was that outgassing could indeed cause small deviations, and that perihelion was the time when such forces would be strongest. But even here the numbers resisted comfort. Outgassing was expected, but the level required to shift the trajectory significantly was far beyond what had been observed. Moreover, the shape of the anti-tail and the unpredictable flares in brightness suggested processes unlike any seen in familiar comets. Outgassing might play a role, but it did not feel like the whole story. The question of maneuver tied directly into the question of intent. If 3i Atlas changed course, it would no longer be possible to explain its motion solely with natural forces, and if it avoided Earth deliberately as its current path suggested, then intent would seem undeniable. To contemplate such a conclusion was to stand at the edge of a precipice. For humanity, the idea of contact with something not natural but engineered would mark a turning point beyond any in history. Yet for all the speculation, the object itself gave no clue. It continued to glow green, to carry its sunward anti-tail, to shift in brightness like a heartbeat indifferent to interpretation. Observatories logged data without pause, filling archives with spectra, images and measurements. Computer models churned through simulations, each one producing a narrow band of possible re-emergence points beyond the sun. The global scientific community prepared itself for confirmation. If the body reappeared exactly where predicted, then gravity alone ruled. If not, then the universe had revealed a secret long feared and long hoped for. As the date approached, tension mounted. Humanity had watched two interstellar objects before, both strange but fleeting. Now it watched a third stranger, still with anomalies layered upon anomalies approaching a moment of concealment. The sun would hide it, and then reveal it, and in that interval lay the possibility of revelation. If maneuver occurred, the solar system would never be the same. If nothing happened, then 3i Atlas would remain the most peculiar natural body ever discovered, still carrying questions without answers. In either case, the moment mattered. In observatories across Earth and on spacecraft orbiting planets, anticipation reached its height. Teams rehearsed procedures, ensured data streams were secure, prepared press releases for outcomes expected and unexpected. For a brief span of days, the focus of global astronomy converged on a single body from beyond the stars, and in the minds of many a quiet thought grew louder. Perhaps 3i Atlas would show humanity not only what it was but what was possible. The silence of the visitor carried weight as though the object itself were waiting to round the sun, waiting to reveal its path, waiting to show whether it was a comet, a construct, or something in between. Until then, the solar system itself seemed to hold its breath, watching the dark green glow slip closer to the star toward the moment of concealment that might be only a passage or might be a transformation. For those who favored natural explanations, the history of 3i Atlas became a matter of ancient wanderings. If the object truly originated in the Sagittarius constellation, then its age must be vast, perhaps older than the solar system itself. Stars form in clusters, and planetary systems often fling debris outward during their chaotic youth. A body ejected at the right angle and speed could escape entirely condemned to drift among the stars for billions of years. 3i Atlas seemed to embody this fate, a relic of another system's formation preserved across cosmic time. Its surface chemistry supported such antiquity. The layers exposed to space for untold millennia had been altered by radiation bombarded by cosmic rays that break apart molecules and forge new compounds. Over time, such processing can create Tholin's complex organics that stain surfaces with red and brown hues. This might explain the initial crimson glow before solar heating exposed volatile cyanide and shifted the color toward green. The strange imbalance of nickel without iron might also find explanation in ancient history. Perhaps the object had passed through regions enriched by unusual stellar explosions. Not all supernovae scatter elements in familiar ratios. Some may concentrate nickel more than iron, seeding nearby bodies with rare chemistry. If 3i Atlas had wandered through such a region, its surface could record the anomaly. Each peculiarity might thus be understood not as artifice, but as memory evidence of a long journey through diverse galactic environments. Over billions of years, the traveller might have crossed the shock fronts of supernova remnants, where waves of energy compressed dust and altered surfaces. It might have glided through molecular clouds dense with ices and organics, coating its body with new layers. It might have skirted the magnetic fields of pulsars where radiation could strip atoms and rearrange bonds. Each encounter would leave a mark, a scar, a chemical fingerprint. To study 3i Atlas was to study a chronicle of the galaxy, written not in words but in chemistry. Yet the scale of such a journey was staggering. If the body had travelled for 4 or 5 billion years, then it predated the sun and planets. It had existed while Earth was still molten, while no life had yet stirred. To imagine such longevity was to confront time itself, a span so vast that human history seemed a flicker. The object became not only a comet, but a messenger of age, bearing within it the story of eras beyond human comprehension. Astronomers considered how much of its mass might remain pristine. If the nucleus were as large as 46 kilometers, then deep within its core could lie material untouched since its birth. Beneath the surface layers altered by radiation, ancient ices might persist, preserving the chemistry of a stellar nursery lost to time. Sampling such material would be like reaching back to the dawn of stars. The thought that humanity might one day send a probe to such an object stirred dreams of exploration. Though impossible now, future missions might intercept similar wanderers drilling into their cores to uncover secrets. For the moment, observation was the only tool. Telescopes mapped its coma, measuring molecules as they evaporated. The green glow of cyanide revealed activity, while the anti-tail showed fragments large enough to resist solar wind. Together they painted a portrait of an active body responding to the sun in complex ways. Yet even here the antiquity showed. The irregular outbursts, the unpredictable flares of brightness suggested fractures within weaknesses accumulated across eons. Perhaps 3i Atlas was breaking down, its long endurance finally tested by solar heat. If so, its passing near Mars might represent its last great flare before disintegration. Such thoughts carried poignancy. To witness a body that had travelled for billions of years dissolve within a single pass seemed tragic, as if an ancient record were burning before it could be read. Astronomers hoped the nucleus would endure long enough for close observation, long enough to yield clues to its history. Beyond science, the object carried symbolism. It embodied the vast scale of the galaxy, the reality that pieces of distant systems could arrive without warning. Its mere presence reminded humanity that the solar system is not isolated. Streams of wanderers drift endlessly, some small, some immense, some carrying ordinary chemistry, others carrying puzzles. 3i Atlas was the third such interstellar visitor detected, but logic dictated that many more had passed unseen before, and many more would come again. Each carried stories older than Earth itself. For those inclined toward speculation, antiquity did not preclude intention. If 3i Atlas had once been altered, hollowed, or equipped by a civilization long gone, it could drift as relic as well as comet. Its silence might not be absence but dormancy. Its orbit might not be random but inherited from choices made in a forgotten age. Such ideas hovered at the edges of discourse, rarely voiced in papers but lingering in minds. If the object was billions of years old, then it could not only outdate human civilization, but possibly even other civilizations that had risen and fallen. Perhaps it was derelict, abandoned, yet still moving, a fossil of technology as well as geology. Even in natural terms, its age was staggering. Few objects in the solar system had wandered so long unbound. Planets, moons, asteroids and comets had histories tied to the sun. 3i Atlas had no such bond. It was older than those histories, a witness to epochs when the galaxy itself was younger. It had passed near stars that no longer existed, through clusters long dispersed across arms of the galaxy reshaped by time. To look upon it was to look upon memory ancient and enduring. As perihelion neared, this sense of antiquity deepened. The green glow was not only chemistry but symbol, a lantern carried across the ages, flickering now in the presence of humanity. If the object was natural, then it represented the raw endurance of matter through cosmic time. If it was not, then it represented design so old that it had become indistinguishable from nature. Either way, it stood as a reminder that the galaxy is filled with travelers older than our world, and that each carries with it mysteries too vast for easy comprehension. In its silence, 3i Atlas told a story of survival, of endurance, across billions of years of journeys that spanned the rise and fall of stars. Whether comet or construct, relic or wanderer, it bore within it the chronicle of ages far beyond the human scale. By the final approach, the anticipation surrounding 3i Atlas had become a global vigil. Astronomers, agencies and countless observers waited for the Mars flyby and the perihelion that would follow, knowing that within these events lay the possibility of revelation. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, with its high-resolution camera, prepared to image the interstellar traveller, while other spacecraft such as Psyche and JUICE stood ready for distant glimpses. For the first time, humanity might view an object from another star, not only from Earth, but from another planet's perspective. The importance of this opportunity could not be overstated. Even a blurred silhouette of the nucleus would refine size estimates and reveal whether the glow surrounding it was reflective or emissive. The possibility that its brightness came from self-luminescence rather than reflected sunlight, though unlikely, could not be dismissed outright given the catalogue of anomalies already observed. A photograph, even one of modest resolution, would not only shape scientific understanding but also human imagination. As these preparations reached their peak, astronomers reflected on what had been witnessed so far. 3I Atlas had shifted colour from red to green, a transition tied to cyanide outgassing yet more abrupt and vivid than any cometary change recorded. It had revealed nickel without iron, a ratio strange enough to raise suspicions of non-natural processes. It had grown an anti-tail, a luminous appendage pointing toward the sun, defying the fundamental expectation that cometary material is always swept outward. Its size remained a puzzle, estimates ranging from 3 kilometers to as large as 46, a disparity that left scientists unable to decide whether they faced a modest body burning unusually bright or a giant cometary mountain surviving against improbable odds. Its orbit lay aligned with the ecliptic plane to within a few degrees, an arrangement with odds of 1 in 500, and its trajectory passed near several planets, yet avoided Earth with remarkable precision. It had come from the same direction as the enigmatic "wow" signal, further linking it to mysteries unresolved. Each of these anomalies could be addressed individually, explained by unusual chemistry, ancient history, or coincidence. But together they formed a pattern that resisted easy dismissal. The closer it drew to Mars, the more this pattern loomed. The flyby promised to decide some of these questions. If the nucleus appeared small, then brightness must be due to violent activity, and the estimates of titanic size could be put aside. If large, then the improbability of such a giant interstellar traveller would demand reconsideration of galactic formation models. If the glow proved purely reflective, then natural explanations would stand firmer. If it showed signs of self-luminosity, then the path of speculation would deepen. And above all, if its orbit deviated during perihelion shifting from the predictions of gravity alone, then the conclusion would be inescapable. This was not a body moved only by nature. In the final days before perihelion, the object's behaviour grew still more erratic. Its brightness wavered in pulses, at times flaring brighter than expected, at times dimming to levels inconsistent with distance. The anti-tail lengthened and shortened unpredictably, sometimes extending like a sword toward the sun, sometimes fading to near invisibility. Spectra revealed bursts of molecules inconsistent with steady outgassing, as though layers of the surface were being stripped in irregular intervals. These changes heightened the sense of unpredictability. The solar system had received 2 interstellar visitors before, each strange in its own way but neither so capricious as this. Oumuamua had accelerated oddly. Borisov had behaved like a familiar comet, but 3I Atlas seemed intent on defying every rule. It became less a comet and more a riddle, a test set by the universe, its solution withheld until the final moment. In public imagination, the object grew into myth. Some called it a messenger, some a probe, some a relic. For scientists, it remained data and anomaly, but even they could not escape the sense of drama. Rarely had an astronomical object carried such symbolic weight. It was a mirror of hopes and fears, of scientific caution and speculative wonder, all bound together in a green glowing body rushing past Mars. When the day of the flyby came, every eye turned outward. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter adjusted its instruments. Earth-based telescopes strained through atmosphere, and radio observatories listened for any whisper. For hours, signals streamed back, pixels forming spectra recorded positions charted. The data would take days to interpret, but already the act of observation felt historic. Humanity had looked at a traveller from another star, not only from Earth, but from Mars, from two worlds at once, a triangulation across the solar system. In the hours that followed, astronomers awaited the moment of disappearance when 3i Atlas would pass into the sun's glare. Beyond that point, prediction ruled. Models projected exactly where it would reappear. If it followed the line, then the anomalies remained curious but natural. If it did not, then the solar system would confront an entirely new reality. Across Earth, the anticipation grew heavy. In observatories, silence prevailed as researchers watched the final frames before the object slipped behind the star. They knew that in days or weeks it would emerge again, and in that emergence lay the answer to the riddle. Would it stay the course, or would it change? In that binary rested the difference between comet and construct, between nature and intention. Until then, all was uncertainty. Through Wa. Atlas drifted closer to the sun, green glow, flickering anti-tail burning faintly against the light, carrying with it the weight of billions of years of history and billions of questions yet to be answered. Its journey through the solar system had already altered human perception. Whether natural or artificial, it had shown that the universe is capable of presenting puzzles that shake certainty. It had shown that coincidences can carry the force of destiny, and that silence can speak louder than words. And so, as the interstellar traveller vanished into brilliance, humanity waited. Behind the sun unseen, it moved on, carrying secrets hidden from view. When it emerged again, the solar system itself might feel changed.